All right, guys, Dave here with another awesome tutorial showing you how to speed up your workflow on Maya. Okay, I guarantee in the next 10 things that I show, there's something that you're not going to know about Maya. So make sure you stick around to the end and see all of these tricks, and then comment below and let me know which one was your favorite and if there's something that you hadn't heard about. So let me start off with the shelf. Okay, now I know that you probably all know about the shelf, but I'm going to show you some advanced kind of functionality with the shelf. So first of all, I'm going to go here to this gear. I'm going to say new shelf. I'm going to call this Dave shelf. Okay. Now here's Dave shelf. And what I can do is I can go to my tools and I can find anything that I want. So I'm going to hold down Control Shift. I'm going to click on whatever I like. Okay. And it could be for multiple menus and whatever it is that I want to often use, okay? Now, I'm not saying that these are important. I'm just kind of showing them for a concept. I can middle mouse, drag, and change the order of these, okay? Now, that's probably not that exciting. I'm sure you were aware of that, but I feel like here's a cool trick that you probably might have not used in the past. So what I can do is, let's say if I did something as random as this. If I created a cube, and then if I wanted that cube to come into the scene, and then I wanted it to be over here, and I want it to be rotated like in that location, okay? And I wanted to save that to a button. So once again, I know that sounds kind of weird, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up the script editor at the bottom here, and this is what the script editor looks like. This is all kind of the programming that's going on behind the scenes in Maya, and I can click on this one to clear the history on the top, and it clears it up here. And if there's anything written down here, I could clear it right with this bottom one here. So you can see with this clear or this cleaned up input, I can go like this. I can go to create, polygon, cube, and you can see here's the code for that. Now I could scale it up. I can move this up, over, and like that, and then also rotate it. And now this code, I can copy all of that code, middle mouse drag, and drop it to the shelf. Now I'm going to say I want to save that as a mel command. Okay. Now what that's going to do, I'm going to go ahead and delete this, is that when I click this, it's going to execute this code. So if I click on that, you can see it executed the code and created a cube and moved it and put it in position. And I might be saying, well, why the heck would I want to do that, and how am I going to remember that? Well, first of all, if I want to remember it, I can right click on it and go to edit, and I can go to my shelves, and then here I could change the icon if I was that ambitious, or I could come down here and just type in cube and save all shelves, and then there it is. So if I wanted a cube for whatever reason, I could click on that and boom, a cube is going to appear. Okay, now you might be saying, well, Dave, that's cool, but that doesn't really do me any good. Well, think about this. What you could do is you could create lighting. Like let's say you set up 3-point lighting and you set up your spotlight, you moved it into position, you set the lighting, you set the intensity and all that stuff, and you set up maybe 3 different lights and you set them up at particular angles. You could save all that code and then you could drag it into the shelf and then save it and then execute the command with just one click. Okay, and it would automatically create all 3 lights and do that. So hopefully that can save you some time, but that's just one of my cool 10 tricks. So let's continue on here. So let's say if I loved using this stuff and I want to access it quicker. Okay, let's say I don't like the shelf, it's too slow. What I could do is I can go to Window, Settings Preferences, and I can go to the the Marking Menu Editor. And when I click on this, this pops up, and I can say create a marking menu. Okay, now this pops up here. And what I should say is a marking menu is basically when I right click and this information pops up. So let's say if I had something in the scene, let's say a cube, and if I right click, this is a marking menu. Okay, so you can see that I'm creating a custom marking menu. So let's say if these were tools that I used often, I'm just going to middle mouse drag and I'm going to drop these into my marking menu. And the order of it does kind of make a difference because that's going to be the location of them when I'm finished. I could even have this cube that I made a part of it. Okay, now you can see I don't even have to fill all of them. I could just leave it like that. I'm going to call this Dave menu. Okay, and I'm going to click save. Okay, and saying, well, hold on, there's an error here. It doesn't. I think it just doesn't like that name, or maybe it doesn't want this one. I'm just going to delete that one. Let's see if that works. Dave's menu 2, just in case I have that saved. And let me see. So if I go into Window, General, where is it? Settings, Preferences, Marking Menu Editor. Okay. Okay, here it is. Dave's menu right here. And I'm going to delete the other one. Okay, here's Dave's menu. And I can left mouse click to test, and I can see what it looks like right here. And I'm going to say, I want to set this to the hotbox. Okay, and the hotbox is when you hold down the space bar, this pops up. And I can see the south region. I can see that this is the north, this is the south, east, and west, or west and east. And so I'm going to have this at my south region, and when I left click, that's going to execute Dave menu. So I'm going to say apply. So there it is. So now, once again, if I press the space bar, press the space bar, go into the south menu, left mouse click, here they are, including my weird cube one. And if I click on that, it created that cube. So once again, if I delete this, I could press the space bar, go down here, left mouse click, even the weird cube, boom, there it is. But I could go down here, and then I could go to my, append a polygon or whatever. So maybe, and that could save you some time. If you had a pen tablet, you could set it up to, kind of like with one click, everything's at your fingertips. Now, once again, these are kind of weird examples, but hopefully you're kind of seeing some potential here. So that's the second one. The first one, I showed how to make a custom shelf included with a melt script here. The second one, I'm showing how to kind of put that stuff into a custom marking menu. But now let's talk about saving some presets in the attribute editor. Okay, so the attribute editor, this is interesting. So let's say if I went like this. Let's say if I wanted a cube, okay, and I want this cube to be exactly this length, and I want it to, I'm just going to kind of scale it up here, and I'm going to give it some subdivisions like this, subdivision like that, and okay, let's see. So watch what I'm doing here. So if I wanted to save this scenario for whatever reason, I can go to preset, and I'm going to go ahead and save polycube preset. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this cool cube. Okay, save the preset. Now the other thing too is that maybe I want to position this like this. Okay, now that has nothing to do with this area. If I go to the first tab, all of that information is stored here. So I'm going to go to preset. I'm going to say save transform preset, and I'm going to call this cool, or I'm going to call this cool cube underscore location. Okay, so save attribute preset. So now watch this. If I delete that, and if I go to create a cube, I can go to the polycube, and instead of me kind of remembering what that values were, I could go to my presets here, and I could say cool cube replace. And you can see what it did is it divided it exactly as I had it. Notice it did not scale it, okay? So I must have not had these values adjusted, because I feel like, yeah, so when I scaled it like this, you can see that those values are not being adjusted. So it only saved the values that were in here. Now if I go to this one, let's say I want to get in that exact location, I can go to preset, and then I can say, here's the location. And now, boom, there it is. And with that one, I can see that that's where that scale information was being stored. Okay. Now you might be saying, well, what's the, what's the point of this? Why am I going to want a cube to be up there and all that kind of nonsense? Well, here's the magic with this. Let's say if you had a material and you had a bunch of sliders, you know, kind of change like this, and you wanted to, you know, you're applying a bunch of different things, you can save that preset, and that's going to save that. Now you're going to say, well, wait a minute, I had that material saved. But when you launch a new Maya scene, all your presets are going to be still there, okay? I feel like this comes in handy if you're using dynamics. So let's say if you made a complex flame that you used a bunch of Maya dynamics to make a candle flame, you can, whatever information is in there, is in that particular tab, will be saved. Okay, so if I go to FX and if I go to fluid, let's say create a 3D fluid container, and you put an emitter in there and everything, but here, once again, there's so many menus to open up and all of this stuff to kind of work with. And it's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to write down all your sliders and all your values that you use? If you, let's say if you wanted to use this candle flame scenario in another scene, no, you're just going to go here, you're going to save it. And you can see that they saved a bunch of examples for you. And you can see that you can have it already there. This also works well with cloth. Okay, so if I go into end cloth, so if I had plain, and you can see that if I create this to be cloth, create end cloth, once again, all of these sliders and all these values, instead of trying to remember them all the time, you can see that they took some time and they saved all these in here for us. So you can just find something like a t-shirt or whatever. But I think what a lot of people kind of don't think about is the fact that they can save their own presets, not only for cloth or dynamics, but for the location of an object, for the color of an object, for the size of the object, for any value of the object that you want to save. You can save it in the attribute editor, and you can have access to that in any Maya scene as long as you're opening it on the same computer. So that's kind of my, that next quick tip is with the attribute editor preset. So we've got custom shelf, cool stuff. We've got the hotbox, cool stuff. We've got the attribute editor preset. And now let's kind of take a look at some other things here. So if I go, I'm just going to go File, New. And this time I'm going to go to the channel box. And I'm going to explain some kind of, I don't know, hidden goodies in here, if you will. So if I go to create, let's just say a cube, okay? I'm sure that you've, even if you've been working with Maya forever, you're probably wondering what these icons up here are, okay? So let's kind of demystify that. So first of all, I'm going to start with this second one here, okay? This looks like, kind of like a speedometer, and if I hover over it, it's going to say, hey, it's between slow, medium, and fast channel sliding. Okay, what does that mean? Well, if I click on, let's say, translate Y, if I click on the word translate Y and middle mouse drag, you can see that it'll move it up and down, okay? But if I put this to the slow one, it'll move it up and down, but it'll move it kind of at a slower, more controlled rate. And if you want it to be super controlled, I can hold down Control while clicking on it, and it's going to even go slower. So I'm going to just, let me see here. I'm going to click on this. Okay, so there I have this set to super fast, and I'm just clicking, and you can see how I just barely make a movement and it goes super fast. If I bring this down, now I can move it, and you can see that I make huge movements with my mouse. I'm clicking with the middle mouse, and it hardly has any movement, okay? If I go up here, it's going to be kind of, it's definitely going to be faster. But once again, if I hold down Control on any of them, it's going to slow it down. So I'm going to put that to fast, middle mouse, super fast, hold down Control. It's going to be kind of a more controlled, in this case, controlled super fast. Okay. Now, this last one here, this is how it's going to the next number. Either in a linear fashion, meaning all numbers are kind of equal, or a hyperbolic way, which is going to be kind of like an accelerated way that it's getting to the next number. So for example, I'm just going to go to rotation. So if I click on rotate Y, and if I middle mouse drag, I'm going to turn this off first. I'm going to put this back to 0. And now if I start moving this, okay, it's going to take me a while to get up to 10,000 if that's what I wanted to. Okay. But if I had this set to hyperbolic, now if I click on rotate Y, 10,000 is achieved a lot faster because it's getting there kind of in an exponential way. And in fact, if I kept going, it's going to get really, really out of hand really quickly, and I could probably get to 100,000 very quickly. Okay, so that's kind of that exponential movement there. Of course, I could slow it down with this one, but it's still, this will be exponentially kind of growing. Usually I leave that at linear. And then this one here, so if I turn on the manipulator here, you'll notice that if I click on rotate Y, it does that. If I click on translate Y, it does this. But if I click on this, now let's say if I clicked on rotate Y, okay, I can see the manipulator, okay? And if I click on this again, when I click on, even on rotate Y, notice it's not rotating. It's translating, even though rotate Y is selected. So what this one means is that, hey, it's basically, it doesn't matter what I have selected here. It matters what arrow or manipulator I have selected in the viewport. You'll notice that if I go back here and select it and then go here, it doesn't matter. It's favoring this instead of favoring what I have selected. So that is what these kind of the mysterious icons are up here in the channel box. So once again, starting off, we had the cool custom shelf. Then we had the marking menu stuff with the hotbox. And then I talked about the attribute editor presets. And now we're looking at the channel box, these cool sliders. So continuing on, okay, let's say if you had a super heavy scene and you wanted to render it, okay? Normally what you say is, hey, I'm gonna close all programs and dedicate all my power to rendering, okay? But have you ever considered closing all programs, including Maya? Okay, well, let's say if you had your render settings set up, okay, so here's your render settings. Whatever you put in here, that's what it's gonna save as, okay? Then I'm just gonna save this scene, okay? I'm gonna save as, and you can see that I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna save it to desktop. I'm gonna call this render test, okay? And I'm gonna click on save. Now, what I can do is I could, let's say I completely closed Maya, completely, okay? And Maya is no longer open. I can right click on this icon and I can click on render right here. So even having Maya closed, I can still render. So I'm dedicating more resources for my computer to being able to actually render this faster. Okay, so once again, I feel like a really cool trick to render even when Maya is closed. Now, since we're on the topic of saving, I'm going to talk about this. We have a Maya scene here, and I'm just going to save this again, file save scene as. By default, it saves it as a Maya binary. I'm going to save it as a Maya ASCII file. Okay, I'm going to just call this Maya render. I call that first one test. I'm going to call this second one ASCII. And we're going to see the difference between a Maya ASCII file and a Maya binary file. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save as. Okay, great. Now, here's the MB or the Maya binary file, and here's the MA or the Maya ASCII file. Well, the difference is a lot of times, I mean, the Maya binary file might be a smaller file size, and the Maya ASCII file has some information attached to it. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, if I right click on it, and if I say open with, and if I open it with Notepad, there it is, Notepad, okay, I get this information that I can actually read. So that means that I can see that at what version of Maya it was made with. I can see all of the information. I mean, obviously I don't want to really read this on a Friday night. I'm mostly concerned about the stuff up here. So let's say if you got a file from somebody and instead of calling them and saying, hey, what version of Maya was this? I'm troubleshooting, blah, blah, blah. No, you could open this up and you could actually read it. If you had a Maya binary file, and if I tried the same thing, if I try to open that with Notepad, I'm just going to get a bunch of jibber jabber. Okay, I'm not really going to be able to see it necessarily. It's going to be, I mean, it looks like it's trying to do it, but it's not, you know, we can't really count on that. Usually it's just zeros and ones. Okay, but on this, and here's kind of a cool hack. I could change this. I could actually change this to 2021. I don't necessarily recommend this, but you could technically do this. And then if you saved this file, then you could open it up in a previous version of Maya, which it normally wouldn't let you. Okay, so if you could change the code, and you could change what it's required for opening. So that's kind of the difference between a Maya ASCII file and a Maya binary file. Okay, so let's take a look at a few other things here. If I go and let's say I want to rename a lot of things. Okay, and this is a good example here. So if I open up this fence, I can see, oh man, my supervisor is asking me to name everything. He doesn't want any default names. So what am I going to do? Am I going to highlight all these and name them all one at a time? Because if I go like this, and if I go over here and say fence, you can see it just does the last one. Okay, so here's a cool trick. I'm going to go like this. I'm going to select all of these. And then if I come up here, and this might be hidden, I can come here and switch this to rename. Now I can call this fence. Whoa. And hit enter. And I can see that all of them got named in just one simple click. Okay, really cool, a huge, huge time saver. So that's the batch rename. So once again, kind of talking about a lot of cool stuff here. And if you've ever done rigging, okay, rigging, you have to kind of make sure everything in the scene is selected sometimes, okay? Now, that can be kind of tricky. It might seem like, oh, I could just go like this. I could drag over everything. And you can see here, it's not even selecting for whatever reason, okay? So I'm just trying to select everything in the scene, and it looks like it's selecting, oh, it looks like my particles. So maybe I put those on a layer and hide them and go like that. Or maybe I try grabbing them like this, but if I open this up, I can see that this stuff still isn't selected, okay? So I feel like it's kind of tricky to select everything in Maya. Granted, you could do this. You could go to select and you can go to select all, but let's say if, I don't know, you wanted to make sure that everything was selected. The best way that I know how is if you select the top group node, and if you come down to the mel command, and if I type in select space dash hi, select space dash hi, and hit enter, boom, everything is selected, okay, including the children of whatever, including the children's groups and everything. So I feel like this is a great way to make sure that everything in your scene is absolutely selected, okay? So just a few last minute things here. The other thing is, let's say if I was rendering and I loved this angle here and I accidentally moved my camera, okay? And oh man, I want to get back to that perfect view. If I hit the bracket keys, the keys next to the P key are undo for camera movement, okay? I hit the bracket keys, and one bracket key will bring me forward, the other one will bring me back. So even if I didn't set a keyframe on the camera or anything, and I'm like, oh shoot, I could just hit the bracket keys and that's going to undo and bring me back to my perfect view. So undo for the camera. And just kind of last but not least, if you ever are watching a tutorial and let's say this is a different version of Maya and you're like, oh, where's that cool button? Don't forget, you can go to the help, go to the find menu, and if you know what it's called, we could type in something like end cloth and hit enter, and it's going to show you every place that word appears in the Maya menu set. And what it is, it's basically if there's something in the bracket keys like this, that means it's in the effects menu, and then I can see that it's in the end cloth menu, and then here it is. So that should hopefully kind of narrow it down for you. And if there's no kind of bracket key, that just means that that menu like display is always going to be visible and you can find it there. So hopefully you learned something cool. Hopefully this could speed up your Maya workflow in the future. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Let me know which trick you thought was the coolest, and like and subscribe to find cool tips and tricks in the future. All right, everyone, have a good one.